Welcome, and get ready for a deep dive into how a really quite impactful financial guidance initiative empowers its audience. We're looking at sources from an AI-powered financial guide's own podcast, Suraksha Se Safalta Tak, your feel-good financial journey. Our mission today, really, is to unpack not just what they advise, but the thinking behind it.
That's right. The core philosophy, the, practical advice, and the unique way they teach it.
Makes it so effective.
Yeah, exactly. We want to understand the thoughtful design here. It's specifically aimed at the Indian middle class, so individuals, families. And the goal is pretty ambitious: build confidence, give actionable long-term saving strategies.
And foster that sense of financial well-being. Hope, even.
Precisely. It's about well-being and hope.
And what strikes me right away is the tone they use. It's deliberately empathetic, optimistic.
Empowering, practical too.
Practical, encouraging, reassuring, all of that.
Yeah.
And they weave in relatable language, even short Hindi phrases like Namaste, Har Mahadev, Jai Hind.
Which adds warmth, doesn't it? And that cultural connection.
Definitely. It feels like it's about connection, not just, data.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's unpack the fundamental mindset shift they're aiming for. What's the core message about money? How do they reframe that conversation?
Well, it's a really crucial pivot. They present saving not as deprivation.
Something you have to do, grudgingly.
Right, but as actively investing in your future self and your family's dreams. Things like, your child's education, earning a home, a decent retirement, maybe travel.
Tangible things.
Yeah, tangible dreams. The message is clearly about building a happier, more secure tomorrow. So it turns something abstract into something you actually aspire to.
And to make that land, they seem to ground the advice very firmly in the specifics of mid-2025 India. How are they tackling the current realities people face?
They go straight at it. Ongoing inflation, EMI pressures, they acknowledge those head on. But what's clever is how they frame these challenges, these real challenges, as opportunities for smart planning. They even bring in recent positive news, like the RBI got rid of penal interest on overdue EMIs from June 15th, 2025.
Oh, right.
And they mention how recent repo rate cuts might have already lowered EMIs for some people. Plus, the changing job market, more AI and ML jobs, fewer traditional IT roles. Perhaps that's part of the landscape, too. Keeps the advice relevant.
So it's not just generic advice. It's very timely.
Very timely.
Now, beyond the actual content, the way they deliver it feels really key.
Yeah.
What makes the presentation work so well?
It's very structured, very carefully put together. Each episode is, 15, 20 minutes?
Keeps it digestible.
Exactly. And the voice, it's always clear, calm, reassuring, warm, a moderate pace. You can actually take it in. They also use this soft, uplifting background music, instrumental. It kind of evokes hope, tranquility.
That's a move.
It really does. And there's that consistent, friendly call to action, like, share, and subscribe to Mori Ashvin on YouTube. Oh, and subtle sound effects too, little chimes or clicks. They use them to highlight key points. It's almost subconscious reinforcement.
So it's a whole package, really, designed for trust.
A complete sensory experience, yeah. Built for trust and positivity.
Okay, so with that foundation, the mindset, the delivery, let's look at the first episode, the power of small steps. It sounds like laying the groundwork. How do they make something like automation feel empowering?
They call it the magic of automation. And they reframe paying yourself first. It's not a chore.
Right.
It's like having a little financial assistant working tirelessly for you.
I like that framing, personifying it.
Exactly. It makes it feel active, positive, less about discipline, more about just setting up a smart system.
And what about compound interest? That can seem complex. How do they make that relatable for their audience?
This is where the cultural tailoring really works. They use these powerful Indian analogies, like a tiny seed growing into a huge banyan tree, or a single lamp lighting many others. The focus isn't the math equation, it's the core idea. Time is your biggest ally.
Makes sense.
And they don't overwhelm you. They just encourage listeners, find one small step you can take today. Reinforcing that every small step is a step towards a bigger dream.
So it builds confidence through action, small actions.
Exactly. Tangible, immediate action.
That reframing is, it's powerful. How does that philosophy apply to budgeting? Which, let's face it, many people find intimidating.
They totally flip the script on budgeting. It's not presented as this restrictive chore.
Okay.
It's framed as a tool for freedom, for understanding where your hard-earned money is actually going, giving you control. They introduce the 50-30-20 rule, 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings or debt repayment.
A common framework.
Right. But crucially, they immediately say it's flexible. They acknowledge that Indian households have unique pressures, high essential costs sometimes.
So you can adjust the percentages.
Yes.
Right.
It's a guideline, not some rigid law you have to follow perfectly.
And finding those money leaks, how do they handle that without making people feel bad about past spending?
They just give really common, relatable examples, things people can recognize instantly.
Like what?
Well, practical grocery stuff. Buying seasonal vegetables, maybe bulk buying where it makes sense, meal planning to cut waste, simple things.
Okay.
Or saving on utility bills, unplugging electronics, switching to LEDs, using the AC efficiently. Basic habits. They also suggest reviewing subscriptions entertainment, gyms you don't use.
Right.
Maybe exploring free local events or using the library more.
Good points.
Even those small daily things like the extra chai or snacks. They point out how they add up. But here's the really insightful part. They frame being smart and frugal as having a jugad mindset.
Wow, resourcefulness, ingenuity, very Indian concept.
Exactly. They literally say it's about being street smart with your money.
That changes the feeling completely. It's empowering, not restrictive.
Right. It turns cutting back into being clever.
Yeah.
And they show how even small cuts, say 100 rupees a day, can add up to significant savings over a year.
Okay, so from daily spending, they then move to building a safety net. How do they introduce that idea? Make it feel reassuring?
They call it a peace of mind fund, or sometimes a Suraksha chakra.
Suraksha chakra, like a protective circle.
Precisely. It immediately sounds protective, calming, and they clearly define it. 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses, the main purpose, handling life's surprises, medical emergencies, job changes, unexpected repairs, things that pop up.
Without wrecking your long-term plans.
Exactly. Without going into debt or raiding your long-term savings, it's positioned as a proactive shield.
And the practical steps for actually building it, especially if you're just starting.
Their advice is simple. Start small. Even 500 or 1,000 rupees a month is framed as a powerful start.
So focus on momentum.
Yes, momentum over the initial amount.
Yeah.
And they bring back that pay yourself first idea, advising you to automate contributions to this fund.
Makes it easier.
Definitely. And crucially, they stress keeping this money liquid, easy to access, low risk, like a separate savings account, short-term FDs, maybe liquid mutual funds. It's very clear this fund is for safety and accessibility, not for growth.
Got it. Okay. So stability first, then smart debt management. How do they approach different kinds of debt and tackling the problematic ones?
They handle debt gently but firmly. They make the point that not all debt is inherently bad. A home loan can build an asset, right?
Yeah.
But they clearly target high-interest debt credit cards, personal loans as the real burden. That's the priority. They emphasize just how important it is to pay EMIs on time. And again, they weave in that positive news.
About the RBI removing penal interest.
Yes, from June 15th, 2025. And the potential benefit of recent repo rate cuts lowering existing EMIs for some.
So linking it to current events again.
Always. They also briefly touch on consolidating high-interest loans into one, maybe lower-interest one if it's feasible for you. And importantly, avoiding taking on new unnecessary debt.
Makes sense. Now the big one for many, investing. How does Suraksha Se Safalta Tak make that feel accessible, particularly for the Indian middle class?
The core message is just incredibly empowering. It's basically savings alone might not beat inflation in the long run. Investing is what helps your money actually grow, compound over time.
The idea that your money can earn money for you.
Exactly. That's delivered like a revelation.
Yeah.
And then they position SIP's systematic investment plans in mutual funds as the most democratic, most accessible tool for their audience.
So SIPs are key. How do they explain what an SIP actually is and why it's beneficial without getting too technical?
They break it down really simply. Small, regular investments, maybe starting with just 500 or 1,000 rupees a month. And the benefits they highlight are very practical. First, it averages out market ups and downs, what people call rupee cost averaging. They explain the concept without heavy jargon.
Yeah.
Second, it encourages discipline, it just happens automatically. Third, you get professional management. Fourth, diversification.
Spreading the risk.
Right, and they use a great analogy. It's like putting a small amount into a growth account every day or month, aiming for a big harvest later. They also mention other options briefly. Government-backed things like PPF, Public Provident Fund.
Safe, long-term, tax efficient.
Yes, good for more conservative savers. And NPS, the National Pension System for retirement planning, again mentioning the tax benefits. So they cover a few bases within the Indian context.
So boiling it down, what are the absolute key investment principles they want listeners to really grasp?
They focus on four main pillars. 1, start early. Time is more critical than the amount you invest, especially initially.
Right.
2, stay consistent. Regularity wins over trying to time the market with big, infrequent investments.
Discipline again.
Yep. 3, diversify, simply. Basically, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but they don't overcomplicate how to do it. And 4, invest for goals, linking your investments to specific dreams. A child's education SIP, a retirement SIP, makes it meaningful.
Connect it back.
Exactly. And they do briefly touch on market fluctuations. They reassure listeners that for long-term SIPs, those short-term dips, they can actually be chances to buy more units cheaper.
Building resilience.
Building that resilient long-term view.
It really sounds like they meticulously connect all these practical steps back to those bigger family dreams, making the whole journey personal.
Precisely. They start by just acknowledging those common aspirations, quality education for the kids, a bigger home, comfortable retirement, that family vacation everyone wants. The clever part is how they help listeners turn those vague dreams into concrete goals, asking, how much do you need? By when? Then helping prioritize.
Makes it actionable.
Totally. And that links directly to earmarking savings or investments for specific goals, like this SIP is for education, this one's for retirement.
And involving the whole family seems really central to their approach, too. Culturally important.
Oh, absolutely crucial and deeply relevant. They actively encourage open family talks about money, emphasizing teaching kids about saving and spending responsibly from a young age.
Building good habits early.
Yes. And fostering partnership between spouses, so couples are aligned on goals and can support each other. It creates a sort of collective financial well-being.
So what about practical strategies for the big milestones? Education, homeownership. Especially given the current context.
Right. For a child's education, they discuss various tools, SIPs, PPF, maybe Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana if it applies.
That's a scheme for a girl child's education.
Correct. But the main message is start early because costs are rising. For homeownership, practical tips on saving for the down payment, understanding loans, again, mentioning the potential positive impact of recent RBI rate cuts on EMIs.
Okay.
For retirement, it's all about starting early, using things like NPS, EPF, long-term mutual funds. They also remind people to plan for other goals, too, a car, vacations, medical funds. And overall, the guide stresses being flexible, reviewing your goals and plans periodically. Life changes, right?
Definitely.
So they acknowledge the challenges of inflation, job shifts, but the constant refrain is that focused planning gives you resilience, real resilience.
This has been a really fascinating look into Suraksha Se Safalta Tak. It's so clear it's not just about the numbers, is it?
Not at all.
It's about building confidence, fostering genuine hope, empowering families through smart, accessible strategies, all delivered with that empathetic, culturally relevant touch.
Indeed. We've really seen how this AI guide takes listeners on a journey, from shifting their whole mindset about money through practical tools like budgeting, safety nets, all the way to smart investing and actually achieving those big family dreams. It's comprehensive, carefully curated for its audience.
Shows the power of tailoring financial education.
Absolutely. Context really matters.
So what really stands out to you about how they managed to turn complex financial stuff into real understanding and, importantly, actionable steps? That blend of practical advice and cultural resonance seems key.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if this blueprint, empathetic, goal-oriented, culturally sensitive education works so well for finance, how could we maybe apply that same thoughtful design to other complex areas where information overload often just paralyzes people?
That's a great question. For us, I think the biggest takeaway is just the sheer power of combining that practical, tailored advice with a deep sense of well-being, of hope.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people could benefit if more complex topics were approached in such a holistic, deeply human way.